Okay, here's Switch Linux. There's a command I'm using to run it. Fexloader. Fex is the emulator. Pain to get working. Took me all day yesterday to get it working, but it works now. It was a hassle. I had to modify a couple things because by default it doesn't compile on the Switch, so I had to remove something. It really needs a newer Linux kernel too. It wants 4.17, but the Switch builds are stuck on 4.9. I don't know why. I think it's just some weird driver reason, but I had to change that. Comment out a couple things that it wants that the Switch doesn't support, but it does work. Disclaimer: I did modify the game a little bit, but all I did was remove the Steam DRM because I haven't gotten Steam itself to run yet. And I figured this way there's less overhead, so it should run a little better. But short of that, I haven't changed anything about how the game works, how the game launches. It's all the same. It uses the same script as the Steam version. The only difference is the executable it's launching doesn't want to talk to Steam. So if I go ahead and I hit enter, you'll see it's going to start running here. It takes forever to launch, but that's to be expected. Let me close out this keyboard here. There we go. You'll see it says Fex Core. Well, it says FFX, but that's just a bug with a Linux build where if you dock it, undock it, it changes the font size because, the resolutions are different. So I think it's trying to kick into high DPI mode here or whatever, but that's a project for another day. I didn't make this Linux build or anything. So I've made Linux builds for the Switch in the past, but they were Ubuntu based. This one's Arch based because I figured you probably need newer libraries for this to work well. So it's launching up now. It's going to take like a minute to launch, so. But you'll notice once we get in here, the intro is the only thing that's going to run full speed. Here's the Folio intro. See, that was full speed. You get into the menu. That's another story. There's been a couple of commits to the emulator that seems to have maybe made it faster since I got this up and running, but I haven't pulled them through yet because I don't know if they're going to break the emulator or not. I'm not going to take that chance. It could easily break Isaac. Not being Steam is also the same reason my save file's not 100% or anything. I didn't copy over my Steam save or anything. It doesn't recognize the Joy-Cons. The Linux build exposes the Joy-Cons, I believe, over docked and Bluetooth. But the game didn't recognize it, of course, so I did have to make a config for them, but that's easy enough. And if I go here, you'll see runs are even slower. I haven't gotten an FPS counter working or anything. Usually Linux has one built in, but in this case the NVIDIA drivers are proprietary, so they don't really integrate with that. But you can see it is not running well. Let me just pull this up here. 3 seconds of in-game time, and it's been, I don't know, maybe 15. Let me count here. Yeah, it's running at like 25% speed. I did mess around with render scale a little bit, but that didn't help. I wasn't expecting it to, but I figured I'd give it a shot. The issue's not GPU. GPU in here is pretty good, at least as far as mobile standards. The CPU is a problem. It's very weak compared to a lot of newer phones, and it has to emulate x86, so it is not happy with me. But it works. Let me just go into a room here. Not quick whatsoever. You can see the render scale stuff there, where the room name's not really visible, but yeah, it works. I wouldn't call it practical. I wouldn't call it playable. I did this because it's funny and as a proof of concept, not because I expected this to work, phenomenally. But there it is.